So today I want to take you through a bit of a framework to help you kind of identify what your goals have been based on, what you would like them to be based on, and what really maybe you should base them on as you're moving forward in your life. There's one thing to be able to say, oh, I don't like the way that things are going. There's something else to be able to understand the rubric by which for you to measure how you go forward. If you don't introduce a new rubric, you'll end up with the exact same format of life. Because as we've said many a time here, usually your life is based on a flawed premise. Some self-imposed or otherwise imposed expectation from somebody else or your own self-narrative that has come to be over the course of time that tells you things need to be a certain formula and a certain kind of way. Hey, I'm Shauna K, Henson, lifestyle design coach, goal strategist, and corporate culture consultant, and welcome back to the UnCultured Show. We took a little break, but now we're back with you. Did you miss me? Just kidding. So I'm back today to talk to you about your life, your job, your goals, your big vision, your dream, and most importantly, your purpose, your reason for being. And as you are considering that reason for being, the life that you are designing around that reason for being. So today I want to take you through a bit of a framework to help you kind of identify what your goals have been based on, what you would like them to be based on, and what really maybe you should base them on as you're moving forward in your life. There's one thing to be able to say, oh, I don't like the way that things are going. There's something else to be able to understand the rubric by which for you to measure how you go forward. If you don't introduce a new rubric, you'll end up with the exact same format of life. Why? Because as we've said many a time here, usually your life is based on a flawed premise. Some self-imposed or otherwise imposed expectation from somebody else or your own self-narrative that has come to be over the course of time that tells you things need to be a certain formula and a certain kind of way. So it's cool to identify, all right, cool, I don't want those things, but it's something else to start thinking about what you do want instead of those things. And if you don't have a different rubric, you'll end up in the exact same formula at some other distinct point in your life. So here we go. Let's take a walk through some of the things that it's kind of important for you to think about as you're trying to create this new framework for how you are going to achieve your own unique version of success in this life that you are in. When we are here, we are talking largely about your job and what it is that you do for work. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but suffice it to say that the way that you work and what you work on is how you express yourself out in the world most fully, honestly. Generally speaking, it's super simple to say things like, oh, well, I mean, my family and my thing and stuff, and I have all those things, and that's how I express myself out here in the world. But the reality is you spend an overwhelming majority of time on your job, on your work, getting ready for it, getting out of it, doing things for it to prepare for it or decompress from it. And it's so disproportionate the amount of time that you spend that it's almost impossible to think about creating a good life without first targeting the work that you do. That's why I spend so much time talking about that here. So let's get to this framework and think about this formula. So first and foremost, I want to make sure that we're super clear about what it is that we're talking about today. This is the design and framework that is required for you to create what I'm calling an intimidatingly successful life. And I say intimidatingly successful because by doing this framework, by investing in this process that I'm about to outline for you, you will in fact have a life that most people only conceptualize in their minds or dream about. It's like that, the thing that Instagram wants you to believe is real life, but in actual reality. And it's intimidating for other people to see you live out a version of your life that you identify as a good version of your life because it seems so hard to do. It really isn't hard. It is the most complicatedly simplistic thing you'll ever do to demand of your life that it be in fact good for you and not something that just kind of goes along with the narrative or the status quo or the way that somebody told you things had to be in order for success to be true for you. So this formula is for you to achieve that intimidatingly successful life. Now, what comes along with that, and why do I disclaimer that in the beginning, is that the reality of having an intimidatingly successful life is that most people are not going to understand it. Most people are going to tell you that what you are doing is wrong because it is different. And I need you to know up front that that's going to happen so that when it happens, you do not think you're doing it the wrong way. If other people are disagreeing with the choices that you are making, you're doing it the right way. That is 100% your evidence on how you, in the direction that you're going in. Because overwhelming majority of people, as we talk about a bunch, are stuck in jobs they don't like. They're stuck in lives that they don't love. And without this particular framework and rubric, they're going to stay stuck or go back and create some different version, but it's kind of going to mirror the same thing because without this additional information, it's it's super easy to get stuck in the same kind of a rut. So intimidatingly successful, it's important for you to know that the only way for you to be at that level is for you to literally go after the version of life that feels like success for you. It has to be unique to you. It has to be something that only you need to understand, right? So when people are opposing you, don't worry about it. That's okay. Them being intimidated does not then make what you are doing incorrect. If you've been challenging yourself, if you've been really taking the steps, the bold, courageous steps to consider whether or not the way that you've been showing up for your life every day, starting with the way that you work, if you've been considering whether or not that is serving your greatest, highest, boldest, best version of your life, then it is likely that you've discovered that it probably isn't. That there are probably places where you can actually maximize the way you show up every day to get a better version of your life. One where you're not tired all the time, one where you're not exhausted, one where you are looking forward to things. Recently, I started the UnCultured Coaching Community, which is really a space for you to go after the next goal for your life. And in this season, the goal that we are going after is relocation to another country, at least for part of the year. Now, why does that even matter? Because when you're thinking about reinventing your life, changing the way that you're showing up in the world to align your work, your life, your wisdom, the way that you show up, how you feel every day, when you're looking to align those things, then sometimes you realize I don't belong here. And it's not that you don't belong here some of the time, but you start to get the understanding that there's some other places that you could go and that you could be. I know that's what happened for me, that it became part of my lifestyle design to consider this picture in a more, global kind of a way. So if that's you, if you are the person that has been challenging the way that work is at the center of your life and realizing that it's time for you to make some changes, I want to personally invite you into this community, this space where we are going after the uncommon life, one where we're not waiting for retirement to live a life that we really want to live. We're not working for the next 60 years to be able to structure our lives. And I want to tell you right now, you don't need to have $1 bazillion saved up for this to be true for you. You just have to get intentional about it. So this community is so that all of us can have this conversation around what it means to really live in an uncultured way, in a way that goes against the plan, a way that goes against what popular culture is telling us is, the right way to get to success. This is your opportunity to reimagine and re-envision the way that your life could be so that you get to live a much more bold and vibrant version of your life every single day. If that's you, click the link below this video and just join the community today. We are waiting for you to continue this uncultured conversation. Now let's get back to the show. So the other part to this is the deep beginning of this is for you to reconnect to your identity. What is most important for you to identify your version of success is that you know who you are and what you were created to do in this world. So I talk a lot about purpose here. And the word purpose floats around the internet like a fish swimming in the sea, I guess. But aside from it being like a cliched terminology that we use in our society these days, purpose is your reason for being, your calling, your purpose, your kind of unique sense of self. All of that is your reason for being. And so if you are not deeply connected to that identity, then it's going to be really hard for you to sit and say what would then make you feel uniquely successful, right? So reconnecting with your identity is kind of the first part of this. So how do you do that? Typically, we all kind of think we have it licked. We're like, oh, by the time you're 40, you're like, oh, I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know all the things. But here's some stuff I want to put out there for you to, just be challenged with. We talked in other episodes deeply about some of this, so you can absolutely go watch those. But for the purpose of this right now, if you are doing things on a day-to-day basis that conflict with who you say you want to be, then you are disconnected from your identity. The overwhelming majority of human beings are doing that in some way, shape, or form. A lot of times it's in the job, right? Like you go to work, you swallow it down. You don't really, show up as your full self because you don't feel like you can. You keep all your ideas to yourself. All of these things are disconnecting you from your identity, and that has a cost, right? So this exercise kind of only works, and this framework kind of only works if you are willing to at least identify up front. Here's the list of stuff that I have been doing to kind of get by, and these contradict who I say I want to be. So these are disconnecting me from my identity. Now, I have to take those things temporarily and for a moment and put them in a bucket. Assume that they no longer exist. Assume that I don't have the job, the family structure, the spouse, the whatever the things are, the debt, the things that make me feel less like myself. And I'm going to put them in a bucket for a moment so that I can reconnect with who I am intrinsically. And when you think about who you are and who you say you want to be and who in your wildest dreams and imagination you will be when all things, are working to your benefit and to your good and all of that stuff, that is who you are. And for this framework to work, for you to really get in touch with this good, big, beautiful life based on the right goals by the right framework, for you to feel that level of success, you're going to have to allow that identity to rule this moment and the rest of this, conversation. So one of the things about knowing your identity and being rooted in that is that it gives you the opportunity to really get goal oriented. And I always like to use that acronym like GO, right? Just GO. And for me, when I say things like goals, I don't just mean SMART goals. I understand those things, but in this case, I need it to be simpler. I know for me, when I first started setting goals, all of those like additional like terminology and stuff, it just made it seem more complicated and made it seem harder to do. So instead, when I talk to you about goals, really all we're saying is in order for you to achieve the big, bold, beautiful, successful life that you can envision now that you're reconnected to your identity and now that you're starting to conceptualize what it means for you to operate by a different framework so you end up with a different result in your life, then what are the things that you need to do next in order for that reality to be true? So that's an ethereal question, but that's the question. What do you need to do next in order for those things to be true? And so then you end up with steps. So you end up with what is now? What are the things I need to do now for those things to be true? Then you end up with a later, and then what are the next things that I need to do after that first thing for that thing to be true? And then what do you have to do after that? It's really 3 phases for you to have this thing in your life that you say you want to have in order for your life to feel most successful and authentic to who you are. So I really want to get into a couple of other things before we get into the framework. And I know the framework is coming, but it's going to go really fast when we get there. But I want to make sure we're setting good ground for that to be true. So when you think about these goal-oriented, mission-based things, how big are you willing to allow yourself to envision? Because the reality of setting new goals and developing a new life and creating a new structure, going after new work, all of those things, is that you have to allow yourself to dream, really, to be as aspirational and kind of crazy about this whole thing as you absolutely can be. Because goals without big vision are just like something else to do on your to-do list. And it gets really boring really fast. So in order for this life to change from super basic, not exactly what you want, kind of living on autopilot, you've got to introduce a massive amount of aspiration. So that means put everything back on the table. Even when you're thinking just about your job and just about changing this one dynamic for you to get from, kind of existing in the job and not really having the fullness of life that you would like to have and moving that into something else. Aspiration, like being wildly aspirational about what it is that you want to do, is your biggest weapon. It really is your biggest weapon. Your goals are not going to be big enough if you start immediately putting limits on yourself. So if you go to do this exercise where you're like, okay, in my most and highest, greatest, best life, what does it look like? What do I need around me? What do I need to do? How do I need to operate in order for all of this to be amazing? And so you start thinking about that now, later, after that. Like, what do I do now to have that thing? What do I do after that to have that thing? And then what do I do after that to do that thing? Then without the aspiration, you end up just like, oh, I want to have 10 pencils in 5 years, when it could be something so much more if you allow childlike vision and an aspiration to become part of this. So here's what I want to talk to you about. In all of this, as you are making the change, I told you in the beginning that this is going to be that intimidatingly successful version of your life, one where you are kind of going against the grain. It's the one where you are giving the people around you a sense of discomfort because they're not able to do the thing that you are now setting out to do to change your life in a way that is meaningful and impactful. Just starting with your job. And technically this could apply to anything that you are immediately sure that doesn't fit your life and that deep, authentic, and intentional version of yourself that you kind of know. It could apply to any of those things. You could apply the same method to any of those things. We're coming to the framework. You could apply the same method to any of those things. But for now, let's talk about the job. You know you're unhappy. You know you don't like it. You know it's not working for you. You know it hasn't been working for you since before you got there. And maybe they were fine for a month or two or whatever. But after that, it kind of all wore off. And what was meant to push you instead ended up being a trap for you. And so you ended up staying someplace where you were never intended to stay, which is okay. It happens to all of us, at some point in time. But now that you're aware that there's a different way and here's the path that's coming, just because you're aware doesn't mean everybody else around you is going to be aware. And so it's going to be tricky for you to do this. So what happens usually when you are the one in your group of people that is going to make the change, when you are the one that is going to go against the grain and do all the different things. I talk a lot here about spending time on the island of Barbados and how much that was disruptive for people around me and how confused people were. And they hit me with those, I wish I could do XYZ thing. What I can tell you from experience is that at some point, the thoughts start coming in. Well, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should wait. Maybe I shouldn't, structure my life this way. Maybe I should want less. Maybe it's too much. Maybe I should give it more time, kind of a thing. You have got to learn the art of arresting those thoughts in a way that keep you moving forward in the momentum that you have gotten, maybe even from just watching this video and from doing the framework that I'm going to give you in a second. But you've got to arrest those thoughts. The thoughts that come into your mind, they don't have permission to just run around and do whatever they want. You have to give them permission to do that. You can also deny them access to running your entire brain, and for sure, deny them access to running your choices and your day-to-day actions and activities. So once you start making that bucket of like, what do I do now? What do I do later? And what do I do after that? Once those 3 buckets exist that point to the goals that you were looking to do, notice I didn't tell you I need to do this 10 things by this date. Child, please. If that were working, more people would have their goals. Maybe we need to try some new methods, people. Okay, so once you make those 3 buckets, the now, the later, the after that goes to the goals that you can envision for this big, beautiful life that you are envisioning. When you start doing it, things won't work. People will ask questions. Even the most well-meaning people, they come to you and they start saying, well, how are you going to do that? That can be enough to deter you. So you've got to learn the art of arresting your thought and speaking truth to your thoughts. Your plan is going to be great. The now, the later, the after that of how you're going to execute some of these things. The plan itself is going to be fantastic. What you need then is to maintain momentum. Momentum does not come from inspiration. Momentum does not come from willpower. Momentum does not come from that. Momentum comes from the truth. So all of this works together. If you know who you are authentically and intrinsically, and if you are intentional about that, if you know the things that you have allowed to stay in your life that are not necessarily serving you and that are keeping you from being that super intentional version of yourself, then you can continuously, and if you know like what those big goals are based on your vision, if you know what you need as far as your new rubric is concerned, and if at minimum what has not been working and has not been serving you, then those things will help you because that's the truth. The truth is, even if it feels comfortable, the job you're in has not been serving you the way that you need to be served in order for you to be fully present and showing up in your life. And so if that is the truth, then it doesn't matter that you're having a good day. I'm having a good day in this job that otherwise is depleting to my soul, is causing me anxiety. I can't sleep at night. I don't know who I am anymore, but I'm having a good day here. One day cannot overwrite the truth, the blanket truth. The converse is also true. You don't quit a job just because you're having one bad day and an otherwise good job, right? Like that's also true. But in this case, we're talking about making sure that you are always attached to and speaking the truth into your space. I'm a huge believer in affirmation and the power that allows into your life, speaking the truth. And when you are bridging a gap of time in your life where you are living in one version, but you know you are destined for another, affirmation, speaking the truth. I use a lot of scripture, but allowing those things to be true and be the truth for you is going to be how you get through the gap. So let's talk about this though. The reality is, and if y'all know me, you know I love a good acronym. The reality is, and this is the framework that's coming right now. The reality is, without something like a framework, you will always return to the thing that you were trying to escape, always. Without something that reminds you of the truth, that grounds you in the truth, that is all like incessantly dosing truth at you, you will start to think you are incapable when you are nothing but capable. You will start to think that this is your only option when you have nothing but other options. You will start to think that the reality that you have been living in is the only version of truth you can have just because it's the only one you've experienced. You can rewrite your life any day you are ready, any time you are ready. It does not have to wait until Monday or Tuesday. Okay, so let's go through the acronym that I use as the framework to reground yourself in the truth so that when those thoughts start coming up, when those people start saying negative things, when stuff at night kind of starts to gnaw at you and make you think that you can't do the thing that you're setting out to do. Because honestly, for some of you, this is not just about getting a new job. This will be about starting the business intentionally. It will be about starting the coaching, the YouTube channel, the consultancy, the course that you've been sitting on, the community that you know is necessary. Some of you are hiding from that, and that's cool. you got another minute to hide from it, but it's not going to let you go. It's not like the longer you ignore it, the quieter it's going to get. At some point, it's going to get louder, or the dissatisfaction with the thing that you're hiding in, AKA the job, is going to get worse and start to push you out, right? So here it is. When the thoughts start coming, when the things start to feel difficult as you're trying to make this change and this transition in your life, I want you to think of the acronym RESCUE. Let's go through it together. It's reground, energize, cite, compound, ultimatum, and expel. This is the acronym. It is RESCUE. So here's how it works. Reground in your vision. So when you are thinking about making these changes and how you can have a new life by changing the work that you do, because that is something that takes up so much of your time and space, or again, anything that feels that you know for sure is going against the person that you are saying that you want to be and claiming that you want to be, then the first thing is to reground in your vision. Your vision is that thing that when you think about your life, when you think about being in your most optimal version of your life, what does that look like? That's what we're setting those goals for, right? That now, that later, and that after that, as we're leading up to the goals. Sit with that for a minute. Whenever the thoughts start coming up, or whenever somebody is negative, or whenever you're struggling or trying to go backward to whatever was already not working and you know it was never working, but you are starting to think, well, maybe I could just say so. First thing is reground in your vision. Sit with it. Sit outside, sit on the floor, close your eyes, put on music, sit with a pen and a piece of paper, write it all out all over again. It doesn't matter how you connect with it, but reground with your vision, right? That's the very first thing. The second thing is to energize an activity in the new direction. So after you reground in your vision, now it's time to pick up that now, later, after that bucket that goes through to your goal that you're going to need. What is something that you can do immediately that will take you one step closer to getting into that later column? So what's something in that now column that you could do right now that would take you forward to get you closer to a piece of that vision? That is going to give you energy in what it is that you are trying to do. So energize an activity in the new direction. The next thing is cite, as in put your sight on a visualization of your vision. So that means go take a look at it. Go take a look at something that reminds you of this big vision that you are working toward. What is the reason that you are going after all of this? Get something in front of you that allows you to take a look at it and give you some time to just sit with it in a new and visual kind of way. If you are thinking about private jets as part of your big goal, listen, go sit near the airport, not in a creepy way that'll get you arrested. Don't do that. But go sit near the airport, watch the planes fly, go watch something on YouTube that allows you to see someone getting on a private jet. This is not for comparison. This is for giving you energy through using your eyes. Your eyes are a gate. They're a gateway into your system, a gateway into your mind. What you look at is going to flood your mind. So putting your eyes on something that floods your mind with all of the thoughts and sights and feelings and sounds around what it means for you to live in this other version of your life, that's going to put you back on track. So after you reground, after you energize an activity in the new direction, after you exercise sight, so by putting your eyes on something that's a visualization, here's the next thing. Compound or add on to the vision, either with detail, deadline, or dollars, triple Ds. So as you are looking at that now column, what could you do right now? Either it's time for you to start adding detail to your big vision that makes your now actions either longer or more specific, right? So that's adding detail to your big vision. You can start to fill in gaps. So even as you're sitting with it, you might start to see things differently. Maybe the plane has a color. Maybe it's a car, and now you know exactly what kind of brand it is. And I'm just saying material things because it's kind of what's coming to my head at the moment. But maybe it's a job, a company that you want to work for, and now you know specifically what kind of job you want to do. So the next action for you might be to go get a certification or to go sign up for an internship in the area, you know what I mean? So that you can get some additional experience and skill set in whatever that is that you are looking to do. So that is adding detail, adding a deadline. Now we're at a deadline. Once things start to formulate, now you can say, okay, well, I will do this next action by this date. Not, I'm going to have the whole goal by 2028. You know what I mean? Like that is what makes things feel so difficult. But if you can look at your list of things that on your now list of things to do and say, I will do this by, Tuesday. I'll do this one thing by Tuesday. Now you've added some energy to your big vision because you are saying, I'm going to do something in the direction of it by Tuesday. And then the other thing is adding dollars. Go to your savings account. Stick some money in it for your big vision, even if you don't know exactly what you're spending it on yet. But have a bucket available where you can start start to fund your big plan so that money is not the problem when you get to the door of where you're trying to get to. So after you compound or add on to the vision, either with detailed deadline or dollars, then give yourself an ultimatum. Here is the U in rescue. The ultimatum is to remind yourself of how uncompromising you are about this version of life that you are working toward. And it's not that it has to be a hard working toward, but it does have to be a committed going toward. And that is why you give yourself the ultimatum. You can't go back. This is your moment. You can't go back. Whatever you do, backward is not an option. And you sometimes have to remind yourself that now that you're out in the middle of the sea, and even if you haven't quit the job, even if you haven't quite determined what you're going to do next, even if you haven't completely exited whatever the circumstance is that you're applying this thought process to yet, it doesn't mean that you're not still making progress, making the list, doing this rescue, watching videos like this, ingesting things with your eyes and your ears that are going to flood your mind with things that allow you the fuel to go forward. That is getting you further out into the ocean. Out in the ocean is the best place for you. What you have to remember once you're out there is that you can't go back just because it feels inconvenient or you start to have questions or other people start to have questions of you. The questions should not be deterrents. One of the best lessons I think I've learned lately is to see questions as loving care. When people have inquiries or they're confused about something I am doing, I'm starting to see that as not challenges, but as love and care to the thought process that I'm having. Because if I don't have an answer, that's an opportunity for me to look at my vision and expand it in a way, either with details, with dollars, or with deadlines, right? Like I'm able to do that. It's so helpful when I start to think about questions that way. And then the last thing is the E. Expel any negative energy that would convince you to be reasonable or envision less. So the E in rescue is expel. Expel any negative energy that would try to convince you to be less. Anything. You don't have time or the luxury to start thinking about your vision in a smaller way. If anything, your vision is meant to grow. As you achieve things, as you get things off of that now, that later, and that after that board that you're making with the 3 different buckets, your vision is meant to grow. It's meant to expand. So you have to immediately expel any negative energy or thinking that would ask you to make those things smaller or to truncate your timeline or to tell you that what you should or shouldn't do and how things should or shouldn't be. Advice is good, but you have got to be your own filter about some of this advice that you're going to get. That is going to be extremely important for you. So let's recap this framework here real quick. We've got the rescue framework. This is how you are going to combat any negative energy or any negative juju anybody trying to put on you as you're trying to make this change in your life. Because again, this is your intimidatingly successful version of life, and people don't always know how to take that. So as you're going to make this change, sometimes you have to perform the rescue. Here's the rescue. Let's start back at the top. It is reground in your vision, energize an activity in the new direction, sight, as in put your sight on a visualization of your vision. Watch that YouTube video. Go look at the tarmac, right? Compound or add on to the vision, either with triple D's, detailed, deadline, or dollars. One of them 3, right? And then get to the ultimatum. Remind yourself of how uncompromising this is for you. This version of your life cannot be compromised for anything. This is the thing that you must do. It's the way that you must be. It's the life that you must have. Expel, this is the last one, any negative energy that would convince you to be reasonable or envision less. Now, to be fair, this could be people, it could be thought, it could be limiting ideas, it could be environments, it could be spaces. Anything that is asking you to be smaller is not the thing that you're going to need going into this next season. So listen, if this really, really resonated with you and you are thinking about taking your next steps in this life, I created an 11-day alignment reset challenge for you. You can go to my website, courses.theshaunak.com, and grab it there. It's $24. It's not a big investment, but it's going to guide you through the process of creating a life and a rubric for how you can start to envision your big vision. It's going to be challenging, but it's going to be worth it. So go there, courses.theshaunak.com, and I'll see you next time.